Welcome back into the podcast. Looking forward to this because he gives great Chicago Bears insight every time he is on this podcast. You can, of course, catch him several places in Chicago media. Of course, that would be middays on The Score with Dan Bernstein, the House of L podcast, Football Night in Chicago. He's everywhere. It is Laurence Holmes at Laurence W. Holmes on Twitter X, and he joins me now. Laurence, Bill Zimmerman, how you doing?
Bill, it's good to talk with you, man. I'm doing well. I am trying to work through what's happened over the last 10 hours or so and figure out what any of it means.
Yeah, it's been I mean, look, I don't think it was totally shocking that Getsy out and Eberflus in. I think that's what a lot of people kind of were thinking may happen. But before we kind of get into everything, why don't you just kind of give me when you heard the news come down about what was happening with Getsy out and Eberflus staying, what was your initial reaction?
Well, I thought that there was a chance that everyone would come back. I thought that might be possible, but I said on the show yesterday that if we're talking about Eberflus, Getsy, and Fields, that Getsy had the worst case to stay. And I think that bared out in them deciding to move on, but keep Matt Eberflus, and we'll find out. But I don't think we'll find out until April, but we'll find out what they're going to do with Justin Fields on this. From everyone that I talk to, and I'm sure we run in some of the same circles, you and I'm sure that you've had people ask you, what are the Bears doing on offense? Like that happened a lot throughout the season. And when you look at the way that, not that more weight should have been put on Sunday's game than others, but when you look at the way that game played out, and you're sitting there going, wait, they only had 20 some odd dropbacks for Justin Fields in a game where you didn't have anything that was at risk. Like you could have let it all hang out. You could have tried all sorts of stuff against Green Bay, and you played this bizarre style. The thing that annoys me, we joke on the show with Layla that Layla gets furious when she sees short side crack toss play. I am furious when I would see Luke Getsy take the smallest person of his offense and ask that person to set an edge on a play.
Oh, yeah.
And it's happened over and over again, and it's really, really frustrating. So,
yeah, Trent Taylor didn't do so well against Rashawn Gary.
Right. Like they've done that with Darnell Mooney too on plays. And it's like, come on, man. Like there's one guy on the team. If you're going to use a wide receiver in those situations, it's Equinemius St. Brown. Like that's it. Like that's the only guy that should be doing stuff like that. Maybe a crack by DJ Moore because he's so damn strong, but that's it. So I don't know. I actually think that Luke Getsy as an offensive game planner, pretty good. I liked his scripts, but as the game went on, I always was left lacking at his ability to figure out what the other team was trying to do and then counteract it.
Yeah, counter punches were always lacking there with Luke. I agree. It wasn't working. I mean, if Justin Fields stays, and I believe they're going to move on, but obviously that is on the table. If he stays, the idea of having a third offensive, it was one of those things. It's this double-edged sword. It's this third offensive coordinator in 4 years, or an offensive coordinator who's just not clicking and wants to run an offense that doesn't suit him.
And I've been thinking about this too. I've been trying to think a little bit bigger when it comes to how quarterbacks are developed. And conventional wisdom says asking someone to learn another offense this quickly is probably not a good idea. But I think it depends on who the teacher is. And if you bring in someone who understands the strengths of Justin Fields and can work around him and work with him, I think that there's a player in there. And I understand if the Bears feel the need to draft one. Like I get it. It's not necessarily what I do, because I think that number one pick can be ransomed considering how many teams need a quarterback. But if you are planning to keep Justin, even though it would be his third system, make sure that if the investment in Justin is going to be, hey, these 2 years, we need to make a huge jump into who we are, picking up the 5th-year option, like all that stuff. make sure that the person that you hire to be the offensive coordinator is in agreement that Justin is the guy. That buy-in to me, Bill, is so important. I think that's one of the things, quite honestly, that held Luke Getsy back. It felt like he was trying, like similarly to Nagy, where he was looking at the dry erase board and saying, well, this is the way that it's supposed to work, instead of what works best for you. Like, let's make this thing, unfortunately, I'm going to say the word that Bears fans hate. Let's make this a collaboration of offensive thought and see if we can come to some consensus on how we're going to win games. I would have liked to see him do that.
Yeah, the lack of look, it's fine if you have a a general core, a general identity of what you want your offense to be, but you have to adapt it to your personnel. And I even think Ryan Poles and Matt Eberflus kind of brought that up today about they didn't use these words, but basically about putting players in a position to succeed and putting them in the best places. And Luke Getsy time and time again just didn't do that. And if Fields is the guy, I would rather have him in his third offense in 4 years than working with Luke again. It just, I felt that they were button heads. It was getting better in December, and then, like you said, this Packers game, it's same thing again. You get past those scripted plays. You ask Luke Getsy to do sequencing and counters and adapting on the fly, which you have to do to what the defense is doing. It never came together. And that's why those first-year play callers are dangerous. And with Matt Nagy, it was the same thing. I mean, I know he called plays a little bit there, but, Andy Reid obviously handled that. And even in year one, I've heard a lot that Brad Childress had a lot of hands
input
into the play calling and everything. And when he was gone, things derailed with Nagy. So whatever offensive coordinator it is, and I don't care if it's Fields, Caleb Williams, Drake May, it doesn't matter to me. I need someone that has experience calling plays and has done it successfully. Obviously, if they don't have a job right now, it's not perfect, but you need to have someone with success there. I don't want them to try and break in a new offensive coordinator again.
Yeah, it's rough. I mean, it's like one of those things where I couldn't really understand why my colleagues were so upset about Eberflus being retained, is because you knew that the offense coordinator needed to be fired. Like, you knew that. So I'm still honestly like on the fence about Eberflus. I think there's a lot of good to what he did, but it's hard to ignore. You're the one who made the hires of people that you had to fire. You're the one who keeps taking the ball when you win the coin flip. You're the one who stopped paying attention to what was going on with the offense, so that you focus on defense. And maybe in not being the CEO head coach, you let a lot of things slide that you weren't paying attention to. But I understand if you're Ryan Poles and you say, we more than doubled our win output in year 2 than we did in year 3. And on top of that, we made strides in getting better defensively, where you're talking about one of the more dangerous defenses. What was it, like 17 interceptions in the last 8 games or something crazy like
something
that?
Yep.
Like they were taking the ball away. And if I were Matt Eberflus, and I've said this before, one of my arguments to keep my job was, you didn't give me a pass rusher until week 8 of season 2. And look what my defense did once you gave me one pass rusher. Imagine if we had 2 or 3, like a lot of good teams do. So I'm kind of stuck on, I get it. Like, I get this is a kind of a risky move for Poles. In the press conference, you heard him, Eberflus, and Kevin Warren talking about year 3, like how important year 3 is. I think that Poles could have kind of reset things with a new coach. I think this is the more risky road. And if he ends up keeping Justin, then it's really risky. And it really does offer an opportunity at the end of it for Kevin Warren to clean house at the end of next year. Everybody got to go, including Poles. So with that level of conviction, it makes me wonder what he heard in those exit interviews from players about how they feel about Matt Eberflus versus how they felt about the offensive staff.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Since you brought up Matt Eberflus, let's talk about it. And the one thing, and I'm not saying this exists, it's more of a curiosity for me, is, and I've heard from multiple people how much this locker room loves Matt Eberflus and has his back. That's great. But whenever I hear players talking about it publicly, it's always defensive players. Like, I haven't heard, and maybe you have and I missed it, but I haven't heard DJ Moore talking about how much he loves Matt Eberflus or Tevin Jenkins or Khalil Herbert or Cole Kmet. Now, maybe they do. I'm not saying that, but it's always a defensive player. And I was like, well, of course the defensive players love Matt Eberflus. But more so about Matt Eberflus, for me, I am one of those guys that was upset and wanted to see them move on. And for the reason of, if you're bringing in a new quarterback, and that's where my stance is, the idea of repeating history of the Mitch Trubisky, John Fox into Mitch Trubisky, Matt Nagy, and Justin Fields into, with Matt Nagy into Matt Eberflus, even going back to Rex Grossman with Dick Duran, and then next year in the Lovie Smith. They never line it up. It's frustrating to me. And while you can absolutely make the argument that Rex Grossman and Mitch Trubisky just weren't good enough quarterbacks to succeed, I am confident that if Justin Fields does not reach his potential in his career, it is because of what the Chicago Bears did to him his first 2 years in the league. I believe they ruined him. Now, he overcame a lot this year, and he did improve. But to me, it's just one of those things where time has expired and they need to make a decision. And if they had one more year, if they didn't have the number one pick, if they were picking 9 and 12, totally different argument about the quarterback position. But it changes it for me that they, in essence, lucked into it. I mean, kudos to Ryan Poles for picking the right team to make that trade with. I mean, absolutely. John Gruden picked the wrong team to trade Khalil Mack to, because he did not think the Bears were going to be good, and they ended up picking 22 or whatever. But to me, that was my issue, is they've opened up the door, like you said, risky with what he's done, an opportunity for Kevin Warren potentially to clean house if they don't have the results in 2024 they want. And if they do that with a rookie quarterback, the Chicago Bears are literally repeating history for the third time in 7 years.
Yeah, I get that point of view. I truly do. And I understand where people are coming from on it. I will say that this is the other part that I think puts Poles in a little bit of jeopardy if this doesn't work. If it is to be believed, and I'm not saying that I share this belief, but if it's to be believed that he inherited Matt Eberflus, he can't use that now.
Yeah, true.
And that's your man's now. Like, you endorsed him by not firing him. So the level of expectation shouldn't go down. It should go up about what you want in year 3. And that's using Kevin Warren's vernacular, that you better, like, the expectation cannot be lowered. The expectation has to be, you are putting together a playoff team. And now he's got to figure out from the quarterback standpoint, if that road is possible with Justin, and how easily or how quickly you could get it going with whomever you decide to draft at number 1, if that's what you decide to do. I just, man, I get why people want to start over. I just think that with how many desperate teams there are this year as opposed to last year, to get there, it'd be hard to pass up the opportunity to ransom that pick off and really set yourself up for sustained success if it's still Poles and crew or whoever the next general manager is. Because if you do it right, now you're talking about multiple number 1 picks in a couple of back-to-back drafts. And that's the type of thing that can help jumpstart an organization.
Yeah, and that was a really good point. I hadn't really talked about that and thought about that Ryan Poles in essence punted his opportunity for a second coach. I'm pretty confident that Ryan Pace multiple times made it clear to his bosses that he did not like John Fox. I mean, he didn't even tell John Fox he was going to draft Mitch Trubisky. I mean, that was clearly
Isn't that a wild story?
It's amazing. And that is clearly a relationship that wasn't working. But yeah, Ryan Poles had that. I mean, that endorsement that Ryan Poles gave Matt Eberflus after the Montez Sweat trade, when he sat at that podium, that was not, Matt Eberflus is our head coach. That was, I love this guy. You guys don't know how good he is. So, I heard, all the stories that they had at the 3 finalists and they told Ryan to pick one, or they had to collaborate to pick one, and all those things where it wasn't totally his guy. But whatever the decision was then, Matt Eberflus has won over Ryan Poles. That between those comments in October and the decision here, Poles is fully in Eberflus's camp.
Yep, it seems that way. And now Eberflus has to prove him right. Eberflus has to take whatever those good feelings were from inside of his locker room this past season, and he's got to make Ryan Poles look smart. Ryan Poles also has to do smart stuff. They've got money and draft capital. They're in a great position to improve what they think is a team that should be able to compete. You drop a wide receiver in there. For God's sakes, get a center.
Huge. Absolutely. A veteran too. Not
yes.
A veteran.
Yes. For God's sakes, do that. Another running back. I think a running back with some quicks and maybe some help at tackle. I don't know, but I think you're moving in the right direction and you're making yourself a sexy pick next year for the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you brought up the idea of the ransom. So let's talk about Justin Fields and that number 1 pick here for a little bit. And to me, I love adding up the pieces. I love comparing things to historical, trades and where things stack up. And I've said this multiple times. If Ryan Poles, whatever he decides to do, he drafts Caleb Williams or Drake May, and they become stars. Great. He decides to trade down and get another haul, and you just take whatever haul he got here and add it to the original haul that he got from the Carolina Panthers. He is in a position to, in my mind, arguably end up with the greatest trade in NFL history, like more so than the Herschel Walker trade. Like It's that kind of level. I mean, already having DJ Moore, Darnell Wright, and Tyreek Stevenson with all this capital still to go is ridiculous. So he gets all the credit in the world there. And that's to me is the most fun, is to just play the trade down game and who what you could possibly get. I know people love doing the Raiders and get so Max Crosby can hop aboard with whatever haul they can get. So I get the appeal there. I really do. For me, the reasoning is I look at it. I don't look at it is that good is good enough. And to me, and that's where I was frustrated with Matt Eberflus. Is I think Matt Eberflus did a fine job, and I've compared him to Rick Renneria, 2014 Rick Renneria. He had the Cubs going in the right direction. They had a winning record the last 60 games, but Theo Epstein goes, "I'm going to go get Joe Madden," and fired him unfairly. That was kind of me with Matt Eberflus. I'm like, if you can go out and get a big dog at head coach, go do it. And Eberflus, you built everything up. Congratulations and thank you. But to me, the combination of Matt Eberflus and Justin Fields, and I love Justin. I was excited when they drafted him, and I've been so hopeful for that. I don't see that as a Super Bowl tandem. I see that as a team that can go win 10 games and be competitive and be a good team for multiple years. But I don't see Matt Eberflus holding up the Lombardi with the confetti coming down. I just don't see that, and I don't see it in Justin, because, like, to me, Justin plays like he should be awesome off script in the fourth quarter in the 2-minute drill, and I haven't seen it come together. And there's holes here at this point, and I just don't see enough where when you're in this position where you're just like, all right, we have to make a call. We're not going to have the figure out the quarterback position later if we give Fields a couple more years. It's not this kind of opportunity. This is a huge level of an opportunity. So that's where I am, where I sit there and go, I love the idea of the haul you can get for him, but I just can't pass up this opportunity. And unfortunately, like I said, unfair to Justin, because those first 2 years were BS for him. Time's run out for me.
Do you got a quarterback that you like?
I like Caleb Williams. I am a huge fan of Caleb Williams. I'm not opposed to Drake May. I haven't watched nearly as much Drake May as I have watched Caleb Williams.
I think that you should watch Jaden Daniels because I think you'll like him more than Drake
I like
May.
Jaden Daniels. I have watched some Jaden Daniels too. I try and watch as much college football as I can, but have I sat down and done all 22 grinding on Daniels? I have not.
You should, because I got to tell you, like, I wasn't a believer in him at Arizona State, and I remember watching him, and I'm like, I don't see it, because when he came out of high school, people were like, "This is the dude, like this is the guy." And I had some friends that worked at Arizona State, and they were like, "Look, like he can do it." He goes to LSU, and I'm watching him, and I'm like, "Wow, he really can make every throw. He's got a lot of mobility." Obviously, the fear is he's 200 pounds and he's 6'5" or whatever. And I don't know if that can ever be fixed. I've spent my life, the majority of my adult life, looking at the White Sox trying to put weight on Chris Sale. And some guys just can't, you know what I mean? Like some guys just can't put the pounds on. But I watched Drake May and I was like, I wanted to be like, man, okay. I think I even placed a bet on FanDuel that he'd be the number one pick.
Okay.
And I mean, I guess it's still viable, but I watched him and I was like, I see the measurables and the measurables are cool. I don't see winner with him. I think it's a much easier case for Caleb Williams, even because of everything else that was going on at SC, where, my goodness, you don't have a defense, that sort of thing. I'm not as high on Caleb Williams as other people are. I have some questions. I've talked to people in both college and in pro that have concerns about football character. Everyone seems to say that he is a top-notch young man, not a criminal, like none of that stuff. But I do wonder if you're getting what you think you're getting with him. And when I go back and look at the tape on him and I look at the games that mattered for USC this year, I'm struck with some of his limitations. And I think that his limitations are very similar to Justin Fields. Now, you could argue, cool, if you're swapping out like the same guy, but you're starting a 4-year clock. Okay, like I get that, but one of the problems that Caleb Williams had in college and especially this year was fumbles. That's a problem for Justin Fields. One of the problems that Caleb Williams had this year against good teams was throwing from the pocket. Off script, that dude makes magic. And a lot of times in the pocket too. Like, I don't want to act like he can't throw from the pocket. I think that would be unfair. But it's similar to what Justin is as a pro. And I wonder how big he is. I'm very much looking forward to the combine, because that man is shrunk every year that he's been in college football. From he's 6'2" to he's 6'1", he's 6 feet and 3/4. So I want to get the official measurements on him. Sure. And if I end up being wrong about that and he's actually 6'2", then go forth. I mean, even if he's 6 feet, like you can look at him and see that he's a more like stout 6 feet than Bryce Young is.
Right.
Like
Bryce is slender. Yeah.
Yeah. Bryce is, I feel bad because, I love Alabama, and I love Bryce, and I see that dude and I'm like, oh man, he really does look like someone's little brother, like ran onto the field, put on a helmet, and is now quarterback in the Carolina Panthers.
Yeah. Yeah. I never have met Bryce in person. I met Kyler Murray in person. And I remember it was before the draft and it was down at the Super Bowl. And I was sitting there, I'm like, this guy can't be an NFL quarterback. Like, I just was looking at him, and the guys who have met both have told me, like, Bryce might have a little height on him, but Bryce is smaller.
Yeah.
Man, like, I don't know how that works. So with the Caleb Williams stuff, the couple things I'll say about that is, one, if you go look at the Heisman picture from 2 years ago with everyone, and he's standing right next to CJ Stroud, they look pretty similar to me in terms of height and build and everything. So, we'll see on the combine. Maybe he was wearing, some thick shoes. I don't know.
Lifts in your boots.
but he looked pretty good next to CJ Stroud there. But, And I agree, Caleb's got some of the same issues as Justin. He holds on to the ball too long. It creates too many sacks. He does fumble. There's issues. He is not a perfect prospect by any means. The off the field stuff, you hear, wild swings about who he is. You hear some really negative things and some really positive things. He's taking his offensive lineman out to dinner, just like, Jim McMahon used to do. The teammates do seem to like him, but at the same time,
then you get that video from the bowl game where people were assuming that them talking about becoming a team had to do with the fact that he wasn't the quarterback. I think that that's probably unfair.
Yeah.
It seems like there was a lot of stuff that was going on at SC this past year and people jumping out into the transfer portal. But it's an interesting situation that you find yourself in when you start looking at the bus rate of the number 1 overall picks. It should give you some pause. And if you think that you're close, like you can't waste time with Montez Sweat. Like you didn't bring him here to waste time.
Right.
And you probably already wasted 8 weeks, but you signed this man to a long-term extension. Make sure that you're able to maximize that and keep going. We'll see. Like I'm not going to argue with people anymore that want to draft Caleb Williams. I get it. All I would say, I know that this doesn't apply to you because I know that you've done the work. All I would say is go watch the tape.
Yeah,
go
absolutely.
Watch the tape, and if you walk away saying, "Oh, he's way better than Justin," then I got questions about you. If you think that he's way better, if you don't see some of the same flaws, then there's no amount of discussion that we're gonna have that we'll be able to find consensus.
Yeah, the big difference between the two of them, where I like Caleb a lot more, and I think you agree here. Justin's delivery of the football is pretty deliberate, and Caleb has an Aaron Rodgers, Dan Marino flick of the wrist. It's lightning quick, and I think that's going to help him out a lot more if he's holding on to the football, where Justin gets himself in more trouble.
Yeah, Justin's throw kind of feels a little bit like his release feels a little bit like a baseball player.
Yeah,
there's a lot of
played.
Right. There's a lot of this, and with Caleb, it's more this. So. You're right. Like that's a definitely something to keep in mind. Although I do wonder what happens when guys aren't schemed open like they are in a Lincoln Riley offense, where once Caleb gets to the defensive speed of the NFL, do we see him hesitate? Do we see his delivery lengthen? Do we see his processing maybe take longer than we would like? All, I think, valid questions inside of all of the scouting that's going to be done between now and April.
Yeah, I'd like to see Ryan Poles and Matt Eberflus do kind of what they did with Darnell Wright, where they just really run him through a workout and push him hard and see how he responds and see how many questions you can answer there.
Yeah.
But last thing for you here before I let you go. Were you able to watch all the press conferences today? And if you were,
yes.
Reaction to Kevin, first time really hearing Kevin Warren talk football operations and your thoughts of him as president.
I was talking to a buddy of mine and they asked me what I thought was positive. And what I thought was positive is clearly Kevin is paying attention, which is great. But it seems like he's good with Ryan making the football decisions, that he doesn't necessarily feel the need to jump into making the football decisions. I also thought, because I was I told Dan and Layla today, I was like, I guarantee you that a big crux of that press conference is going to be about the stadium.
Of course.
Kevin is not going to pass up an opportunity to apply leverage. And I think that he did that. I will say that I don't think that he's happy about the deal that was put in place before he walked in the door. I think that he thinks he could have done better. And that's exactly what I want the president of the Bears to do, is look out and say, yeah, this deal, I feel like that deal hamstrung the Bears in competing and maybe getting the best overall fan experience for everyone. I'm a resident of Chicago, like the city. I am a South Sider, and with all the money that it looks like is going to be spent on this, I do not want the citizens of Chicago to have to pay for any sort of renovation in Soldier Field. Now I get it.
They did that.
I get it. And they still owe money. Like
Right.
we still owe money on
Right.
that. And that's bad. If they and I get that in Arlington Heights, as a resident of Cook County, then I'm probably gonna have to share something for them to do that. But there's no land on the lakefront. I mean, if they turn down George Lucas, I mean, you've been over there. One, you got to worry about the columns. Two, there's a police and fire memorial right behind the stadium.
Yep.
There's no place to go but up. And that means you tear it down, which means, oh, well, they're going to play in Champaign again, for the foreseeable future. I guess they could go to Evanston, but they'll play in Champaign again. I don't want that. I want it to be a clean operation. And I think that Kevin Warren is open for business, and he is going to use the leverage of Chicago to try and get something done. As it pertains to Eberflus and Poles, to me, it's really clear. And I don't know how my partner is going to react to this when we discuss it tomorrow. Poles laid down who's in charge of the Bears football operation. You can be mad if you want to, but this is what I thought all Bears fans wanted. I thought they wanted to know instead of guessing who's making decisions. I think it was good that George wasn't there on the dais answering questions. You wanted someone to be in charge of football? Guess what? Ryan Poles is in charge of football. Now you have to live with the decisions that he makes, even when you disagree with him.
Yeah, and here's what I'll say, and this is what I've wanted, and I think this is what the Bears have now. Ted Phillips, to me, was someone who could never hold football operations accountable. Like Ryan Pace or, whoever, Jerry Angelo, it didn't matter.
Or Ryan Poles.
Yeah. Was going to do what they wanted to do, and they did not have to answer as to why they did it because Ted Phillips didn't know. All I wanted from a team president was someone who could hold football ops accountable and be like,
yes,
know enough about football to know that this is going in the wrong direction, or and let the GM stand by their decisions, but be able to actually question them as to why, get a better understanding, and maybe, collaborate, to use that word, and come up with some better ideas in certain areas. But I certainly didn't want a president swinging his what around and pushing Ryan Poles around. That's not what the team needed. The team needed a president that at least could just look at football ops, and not even just from what decisions are they making, but how is it run operationally like a business, and being able to see where it can improve and what they're doing right and wrong. And Kevin Warren, to me, seems like the guy that is able to do that and should be able to do that moving forward.
I would agree. And I think it's hard to judge anyone off of a couple of press conferences and some weird feature stories. But I think that's exactly what you want. The president of football operations or baseball operations on like the business side of baseball, that person's job is so much bigger than what's happening on the field. That's why you have a general manager that's going to be in charge of that. Kevin Warren is spinning a whole lot of plates. So I like the idea that, he should be passionate about losses. He's the president of the Bears. He shouldn't want to be embarrassed on national television. But I like that he didn't kind of come in here and just react. Like he didn't react like a fan would react and just flip out and say, oh, okay, well, now I'm just going to tear all this stuff apart and we're going to start over. No, he's out here preaching that he should give his general manager autonomy to go an agency to do what he wants to do. And I don't know if it's going to work. I have my problems with Ryan Poles. There's still things about him that I don't like. But on balance, I would say that he's done a better job than not. I have some quibbles, but I think that he's done a really solid job. Let that man go forth and let's see what else you can do. He made a risky choice in keeping Matt Eberflus. Let's see if his instincts are better than ours.
Right. Yeah, and I agree with you. I think Ryan Poles had a fabulous 2023. Just, I mean, really couldn't have done much better than he did. 2022, I had issues, and a lot of them revolved around what he didn't do for Justin Fields. But, you know, we move on here at this point, whether Justin's here or not. It's 2024. So overall, I think Poles is going in the right direction. And you, even if you're frustrated in the moment, you know, there is something about trusting him and seeing what he can do. Again, not what I would have done, but, you know, we'll see if it works out. So there he is, Laurence Holmes of The Score, the House of L podcast, and, of course, Football Night in Chicago. I think I might have said America at the top.
I mean, it's
Football Night in Chicago.
It's an offshoot, right?
Absolutely.
We're all NBC, so that's where we got the idea from. So, yeah, it's fine.
But, yeah, follow him on Twitter at Laurence W. Holmes. Laurence, thanks for so much time. Appreciate it, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, Bill, anytime, man. Thanks.